stress, history, and pandemic. If there's no bread, let them eat cake. People who studied about the French Revolution will say that this sentence was said by Queen Marie Antoinette. Actually, this sentence was attributed to her by the revolutionaries, so they can justify the revolution. So they wanted to show that the ruling class was cut off from the people who were hungry for bread. And we can see that this so-called truth continues for nearly 250 years. By the way, just for your knowledge and to know the truth, Marie Antoinette was originally from Austria, and the lifestyle of the French nobility was strange to her, and she didn't really connect to it. Actually, she adopted poor children, supporting the family, and after the parties in Paris, she would go to the village that she had built near the palace in Versailles to live simply and eat healthy. Now, you might ask that how the history of the French Revolution is relevant to dealing with stress or with today's life. In this video, I'll show you how the past affects the present. Yet before we enter into the history, I want to talk about the common ways to deal with problems. Now, there are two ways how people usually are dealing with problems. The first one is that what most people do. They deal only with the symptoms. The second way is to search in depth and to solve the roots of the problem. Now, some might that the second way is difficult and it's hard, and yes, I can agree with that. Yet, it's much easier to solve the problem once and for all from its roots and not to accept it and to live with the problem throughout our life. Now, we're witnessing drastic changes happening right now in the world. And also here, there are two ways that how people are dealing with the situation. The first way, the majority of people are conformists, meaning that being obedient and doing whatever they're told to do without asking questions. If they're told to put and chalk behind the mask, they will do it. If you're told to get vaccinated, even that no one has idea what result will happen in the long run, they will do it. They're told to be closed and detached in a quarantine, they'll do it. The second way is to be non-conformist. Those people are not willing to do anything without asking questions, without trying first to understand what is really going on. Now, it's each person's decision to which group to be part of. The reason that most people acting obediently, without doubting, without asking questions, just because they are being manipulated, causing them to be afraid. Now, most people afraid, the biggest fear is from the unknown. And what is the unknown, the biggest unknown, the mysterious unknown in our people's life is the fear of death. And when people are made to believe that there is a danger that could harm and kill them, their fear of death causes them to do whatever the authority people tells them to do so they can avoid danger. The problem is that the scared people are acting on two wrong assumptions. First of all, they assume that those authority figures who gives them instruction and tell them what to do, they know what they're saying. The second is even the worst. The belief is that those authority figures have no hidden interests. Later in this video, I'll show you some hidden interests. Now, after the conformists do whatever they are told to do, they have a feeling, they feel like messengers. So they need to persuade and force all non-conformists to do the same, especially when they are manipulated that those non-conformists poses a danger to them. There's one reason that they convince others. It's because that there is some doubt in the mind and there's a chance that they are wrong with their decision. So they don't want to be the only one who's doing the mistake. Now, this is called the crab in the box phenomenon. When hunted crabs are put together in a box, and to feel safe, they hold each other. So nobody can escape. My name is Jacob Shekrel. I'm a mental strategist and a clinical hypnotherapist. And by using a method which I developed, I had executive and business people to release stress and anxiety and to rebuild self-confidence and self-esteem. And you probably could already notice that I'm a quite non-conformist. And if anyone doesn't like what I'm saying here, that's okay. We can say goodbye and separate as friends. Yet those who decide and choose to stay here and watch the video, I assume that you already understood that my way is to search for the roots. Maybe it has to do with the fact that as a scuba diver instructor, I like to dive deep. One of my passions is history. And there is a phrase I strongly believe in. There's nothing new under the sun. Meaning what happens now has already happened in the past. And I don't mean that the situation will be the same. I mean that people's attitude and behavior is repeating itself. Let's go to the history. In the second half of the 18th century, two significant events occurred in the world that they changed the form that people live in the world. And I'm talking about the Industrial Revolution and the French Revolution. That French Revolution that beheaded Queen Marie Antoinette and the heads of tens of thousands more people was one of the point of changes. That revolution was designed to end the gaps and create class balance equal between those nobles and the feudal lords and to the vassals and the classless masses. But in fact, it was to replace one evil with another evil. Those revolutionaries who demanded to have equality for people, actually they killed many of the people that were supposed to help them. The second event was the Industrial Revolution, that on one hand made the world a comfortable place to live in, freeing people from hard work and by using machine and technology, and even turned the world into a small global village. But this revolution also brought a lot of evil to the world. We think that we live in a democratic world, but in fact, the Industrial Revolution just created a new class that replaced the feudal lords. Now, this new class had no aristocratic titles, but they took control of the money, and a lot of money. These were the manufacturers and the factory owners. In the feudal world, the noblemen owned the land, which they received from the king. The vassals were the common people, uneducated people who worked in the fields, which they promised their loyalty to the noblemen, and for the right to cultivate the land. As a result of the Industrial Revolution, there was a huge migration from the rural areas to the cities' suburbs. The young generation wanted a change. They hoped to have a new, better future. But they were unaware that working in the new factories means that they entered into the rat race. They changed the hard work in the fields in fresh air to hard work in unhealthy environment in the factories. But on the other side, the factory owners wanted workers with education. And public schools were established to teach basic education. But the factory owners wanted more than that. They wanted the school to teach the future workers two behavioral characteristics: obedience and competitiveness. Now, when Henry Ford said a car for every worker, he didn't say that because he was a nice employer, but because the workers were his captivated customers. He sold cars to the employees on credit, based on the future money that they're going to earn from him. And every month he pushed his hand into the pockets to collect the monthly payment, even before the workers received the rest of the money, the monthly salary. Now, there was other additional industries that were created to support the marketing of this concept. Cinema, advertising, banks, credit, which helped to sell the American dream concept, bigger, stronger, faster. And we were told to work hard for 45 years to gain financial security and insurances. And when we retire, we'll have enough money to enjoy life. Now, in the last global economic crisis in 2008, the pension money disappeared in the blast of the economic bubble. And even people that had high education level were unemployed. But most people has a short memory. They don't want to remember what is uncomfortable for them. They don't want to see the truth. And the truth is that we sold our freedom for the sake of lifestyle. We have transformed from vassals who work for the feudal lords to employees who work for the manufacturers. The manufacturers are the ones who control our lives. And the interest of the manufacturers is to have more money. And they're using the money to control politicians. So in order to enact laws that will enrich them even for more, they control the doctors who have become legal drug dealers. The manufacturers created genetically engineered agriculture, producing industrial food, full of sugars and chemicals. And when people get sick and obese, the pharmaceutical manufacturers sell their products by the doctors. Chemical drugs designed to treat symptoms that allow people to live with the diseases. The world has gone crazy, and we are collaborating with that because people got used for living comfortably, and they live in the illusion of a democratic world. Most people in the world haven't heard about an investment company called BlackRock, which is the owner of most of the industries in the world, and that the value of its assets is similar, listen to this, it's similar to the asset of the two richest countries in the world, China and USA. It's a company. And there will be always people who doesn't want to see the truth or doesn't want to see the connection. They want to believe whatever there is. And we are familiar with the sentence, it's too good to be true. We say it when we do not believe that something good is happening to us. But this coin has another side. And it's the sentence, it's too bad to be real. And that's when we don't want to see or believe that something bad will happen to us. For everything bad that is planned for us, they give it an excuse and a good explanation. So we make us think it's in our favor. Let's see a possible example. We know that today the world is in accelerated development of robotics. The excuse is that it's meant to free people from many jobs and hard work. But what if? What if one day they will build robots and give them weapons in hands, and they will replace the police and the army to control civilians? Sounds imaginary? Hard to believe? Right. But today already they're using robots in the military. And in Germany, they're experimenting, giving robots to work with the public in town halls. So let me remind you, there's nothing new under the sun. About 170 years ago, many said that the books of Jules Verne who was born almost 200 years ago, are fiction books. Jules Verne described technology that did not exist at his time, ones that were invented about 100 years after he described them after he died. I hope that it's just my imagination and I'm wrong and it will never happen. But if it will happen, what if it will happen? Our life and our children's life won't be the same as we know them. If we allow our imagination to function, maybe we can predict what will happen in X years. But you know what? If imagination doesn't suit you, so maybe you want to hear about facts, about manipulation that's done to us. And I have a lecture when I talk about facts of two topics. about medical negligence and how many people die each year as a result, and on the pharmaceutical drug industry. Now, this data may shock you. And by the way, this data, the authorities doesn't want people to know. And when you see the numerical facts, you'll be able to decide if the events that are happening now in the world are relevant and related to everything that I have described. My name is Jacob Shekrel, and I'm looking forward to hear from you. Respond in the comments if you want to hear my lecture, and I'll send you an invitation for that. Thank you.